Hello, welcome to your own channel of Curious Corners in Biology, where we discuss the curiosity aspect in biology and we ask inquisitive questions about different topics in biology from anywhere and from everywhere. Okay, so today I want to discuss a couple of unique questions which can hit one's mind. So, we already know what are artificial sweeteners. Artificial sweeteners are chemical substances which act as sugars, but they are not sugars. So, are they involved in carbohydrate metabolism? The answer is not directly, but indirectly, yes, they are involved. What do I mean by artificial sweeteners involved indirectly in carbohydrate metabolism? That means they affect carbohydrate metabolism. So, does it have positive effects? Does it have negative effects? What are the kind of effects they pose across? So, artificial sweeteners, we know they can be saccharin, they can be sucralose, they can be substances like aspartame. Now, all these aspartame, saccharin, sucralose, which are artificial sweeteners, are more than 200 times sweeter than natural normal sugars. So yes, they can act substitute effectively for sugars. What is the advantage of these acting as substitutes? We will feel the sweet taste in our body without carbohydrates actually entering into the body. So this is a way to satisfy our taste buds. So then a question comes, do they contribute in increasing the calories in our body just as how sugars do? Right? The answer is they do not contribute to increase in calories as well. So, of course, those who are aiming for weight reduction do incorporate artificial sweeteners in their diet. Okay? Because calories are not contributed by these substances. Then of course, they are meant to serve a purpose, but as they are chemical substances, definitely there might be some contraindications or side effects associated to them. Yes, of course, there are some side effects. Number one, artificial sweeteners will directly impair gut microbiome. Gut microbiome is basically pool of microbes which are present in our gut, which have beneficial functions like helping in digestion, preventing allergies. They are very important bacteria. They also contribute to the immunity. So, how does it affect gut microbiome? It will decrease insulin sensitivity of the body, hereby increasing the insulin resistance. That means consuming a lot of artificial sweeteners can put a person to the risk of type 2 diabetes, because the insulin receptors, if they are not sensitive to insulin, this leads to a condition called as insulin resistance. That means carbohydrates will not be naturally metabolized. Of course, carbohydrates are present in diet. Just taking up artificial sweeteners doesn't mean that the person is not consuming carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are, of course, consumed. Okay. Then the other thing is, as these are chemical substances, artificial sweeteners are also known sometimes to induce changes in pigmentation of the skin as well as allergies. Okay. And if they are disrupting carbohydrate metabolism, they also put a person to cardiovascular risk. That means heart problems, cardiovascular problems can be brought about by consumption of artificial sweeteners. Okay. The next question which comes to our mind is, you might have heard about a substance which is called as heparin. Heparin, as we know, is a natural blood anticoagulant. That is why blood is in liquid form in our body. It can flow across the blood vessels and serve its functions. This is because heparin will not allow the blood to clot naturally. How does heparin achieve this? Very simple. It is enhancing the inhibitory activity of antithrombin enzyme directly in the blood plasma. So, by enhancing the activity of antithrombin, blood coagulation is simply prevented. Okay. So, that is a short and simple answer that how heparin acts as anticoagulant. Anticoagulant, of course, is required, otherwise, blood will solidify. Okay. Then, next question I want to discuss is the importance of lipoproteins in cells. See, we know that biomolecules are lipids, proteins, and carbohydrates. These are major ones. Carbohydrates, of course, are instant source of energy. Lipids are also there constituting the cell membrane. Proteins are also there as the most important biomolecules of the cell. But why do we need a complex like lipoprotein in a cell? Why not lipids and proteins performing their independent functions? Lipids can perform their functions like building up the energy reserves of the body, and proteins functioning as enzymes or building up the body. What is the requirement of lipoproteins then? There is a requirement, and this is related with solubility of lipids. Medium-sized lipids or large-sized lipid molecules are not soluble in water, and most of the component of cell is water. How will lipids be soluble in water? Okay, lipids are naturally hydrophobic. That means they do not like to interact with water. What about proteins? Proteins are hydrophilic. So they will love to interact with water. So when proteins interact with water, they are more soluble than lipids. And how is a lipoprotein complex? Lipoprotein complex is surrounded by protein on the outer side and lipid on the inner side. So this way, lipid is protected from the action of water, and protein from the outside will interact with water. Okay. So this is how lipoproteins are very useful for a cell. Now, cell, of course, needs to transport lipids to various locations or targets. Like, of course, dietary fat from intestine has to be transported to different parts of the body to serve in providing energy. Okay. So this is done in the form of a lipoprotein complex that is called as chylomicron. Okay. Then there are other lipoprotein complexes as well, like VLDL, very low density lipids, HDL, high density lipoproteins. I'm sorry, it's not lipids. It's VLDL is very low density lipoprotein. Okay, HDL is high density lipoprotein. This is what we call it as good cholesterol. Okay, that means this cholesterol is required for metabolism, required for brain activity. And then there is LDL, low density lipoprotein. That is bad cholesterol. Why do we call it bad? Because it gets deposited into the arteries and causes atherosclerosis. It contributes to formation of plaques during atherosclerosis. Okay. So all these are lipoprotein complexes, and they are heck of important molecules which are required for proper transport of lipids in our body. And that is why we do require them. Okay. Then question of the day is, we know that DNA is the genetic material of the body, that is deoxyribonucleic acid. Now the structure of DNA is double helix. Okay, that means it is spiral in shape. It is 3D. Why so? DNA could have assumed many other conformations or structures. It could have been round, it could have been square, it could have been a ladder, it could have been anything. Okay. But why specifically so important molecule, that is the genetic material of the cell, is double helix? Now, of course, you come across answers like the stability of hydrogen bonds is required between nitrogenous bases. Phosphates do interact with the ribose sugar, forming the sugar phosphate backbone. But is it only the bonds which are stabilizing the structures? Is it only bond angles, or is there anything else? Is this double helical structure due to some chemical interaction? Yes. The basis of DNA being double helix is all to do with how the components of DNA interact with water. Again, we are talking about solubility. We know that DNA is made up of three components. Ribose sugar. Ribose sugar is found in RNA, which is also nucleic acid, genetic material in certain viruses. Let's call it sugar. Then we have nitrogenous base, okay, and phosphate. Out of the three components, sugar and phosphate are hydrophilic. That means they will interact with water. And nitrogenous bases are not hydrophilic, they are hydrophobic. That means they will not interact with water, they will repel themselves from water. Okay. So, to understand this in a better manner, I'm sharing my screen, and you will be able to see, first of all, the 3D structure of DNA double helix. So as you what you see on the screen is the 3D structure. If you view from the top side, we come across what is called as a spiral staircase. So this is how spiral staircase looks from the top. Okay. Of course, we have climbed a spiral staircase at some point in our life. Now, if I view this laterally, this is how DNA looks like. So you can see that there are two strands of DNA. Okay. Strands means they are linear chains. What are these made up of? Sugars and phosphates. Okay. So the golden colored strand is one strand and the neon blue colored strand is the other strand. Now, as sugar and phosphate are capable of interacting with water, they being hydrophilic, they are present outside. Okay. So water molecules will directly interact with the sugar phosphate backbone. But nitrogenous bases, as you can see, are tucked inside. Can you see that they are tucked inside? They are present inside. So in a way, they are protected from water molecules. Are you getting what I'm saying? So this will support the chemical stability of the DNA molecule. Now, there is a question to this. What if DNA would have been a ladder-like? So ladder-like is number 2 shape. Then ladder-like, of course, there would be holes, because a helix and a ladder are two different things. A spiral ladder and a normal ladder are two different things. Of course, here water molecules will sneak in. Okay. In case of ladder, water molecules will sneak in, so this will disrupt the chemical stability of DNA. Okay. So, what if we twist the steps of the ladder? It becomes a staircase, but here there is a problem. The neighboring atoms will come so close to each other that they will start to repel. This is called as bumping of atoms. We don't want this, because again this will cause repulsion and lack of chemical stability. But if we twist the bond angle of nitrogenous bases, then what we get is this DNA double helix. Can you see? Okay. So, of course, we require a helix for the chemical structure of the DNA to be stable. We require DNA double helix for its chemical structure, bonds into it, bond angles into it, the torsion into it to be very stable, because of course this is the molecule which is directing the functioning of the whole organism. So this has to have some magical scientific shape. Okay. So this is what I wanted to discuss for today. Of course, we will be coming up with many such questions in the days to come. If you are interested in such content, please do not forget to subscribe to my channel. If you read the description, then I have hosted a book on Amazon, Curious Corners in Biology, which is a dungeon of all curious questions in biology. I'm sure if you buy it, you will not be disappointed. And as an enthusiast, when you read the subject of biology, a lot of questions would crop up in your mind. So this attempt will help you to think scientifically and inquisitively, and it will make a difference in how your brains are wired. Okay, so this is what I do. That much for today. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.